Welcome to Season 5 of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast with Adina, Brian, Cris, and Steve, the biggest sci-fi podcast in the galaxy. The adventure is just beginning here at the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, and we invite you to come aboard the Starship Tangent. We know you'll enjoy the conversation, the laughter, the banter back and forth, and most of all, friends who love hanging out to talk about all things science fiction. Set your phasers to fun. Here we go. Hey guys, this is Brian Donahue, one of your neighborhood-friendly podcasters, and I'd like to personally welcome you to the start of Season 5 here at the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. We are so thankful to you, our faithful listeners, for continuing to support the podcast, and we humbly ask that you keep sharing, liking, and to write a kind review if you're able to, as that helps us get this podcast in front of more potential listeners. I'd also like to thank the Trekkie Podcast Network for letting us be a part of their fantastic lineup of podcasts. You can learn more about Trek Geeks at trekgeeks.com. We're starting Season 5 off with a bang, as we had the privilege of visiting with the beautiful and talented Robin Curtis. That's right, the Robin Curtis. This episode was actually recorded just at the start of the SAG-AFTRA strike, way back in July, earlier this year. So you may hear some language around this issue. Because the Trek Geeks Network passionately stood in solidarity with the actors as they stood up for their own rights, we withheld releasing this interview in support and to honor their great efforts. We are so pleased to release this episode now, though, as we thoroughly enjoyed our time with Robin. Of course we did. So let's get to the wonderful Robin Curtis now as we launch our 5th season here at the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. Enjoy.
Greetings, listeners of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. Now, to me, the mark of an amazing actor or actress is when I meet them in real life and they are nothing like the characters they are known for playing. I really shouldn't have been too surprised when we met Robin Curtis. In every picture I've seen, she has this huge, awesome smile, which is completely opposite of the role she's known for in Trek, the Vulcan Saavik in Star Trek III: The Wrath of Khan. And then she played a Vulcan impersonating a Romulan, impersonating a Vulcan, impersonating a Romulan, back and forth in the Next Generation episode, The Gambit. So we're going to have some fun as we talk about these roles, life, other sci-fi roles, and possibly an upcoming independent horror film, Awaken the Reaper. Hi, Robin. Thank you so much.
Dina, good evening. Oh, this is so lovely of you. Thank you. I'm embarrassed. My cheeks are red, and
yes, I win. That's my goal.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Well, I want to just actually start talking about the role of Saavik, because one of the interesting things I thought this was really like just me until I started doing a little research, and that there are a lot of people out there that see you as you are Saavik, even though you were the second person to play her. And I was thinking through the timing of when I saw the movies and how old I was. And I think I saw them out of order. So yeah, you were Saavik to me. And it wasn't till like later I kind of really put everything, in the order. And I found that this is really interesting because it didn't like dawn on me that was, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people out there that see that. And I think that's really cool. It's an amazing role.
I was a big soap opera watcher when I was a kid. And I remember when they would replace an actor with another actor or actress. And I didn't like it. I have to say, it would just rankle me, and it took me a long time to get on board with that second person. So I was fully prepared, to years later to be met with the same resistance and a possible loyalty to the first actress. And I totally respect that. And it's been cute over the years, when I meet people. And they'll tell me which actress was their favorite. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's Kirstie Alley. And I'm so cool with that. I get it. And of course, when I had more perspective years later, Adina, and I came to understand how the role really was collaborative in both instances. It was mine with Mr. Nimoy and hers with Nicholas Meyer. And so Do you know what I mean? There was more than one person whose hand was stirring the pot, and I appreciate that as well. The fact that this was Saavik in two different moments in time, directed by two different, people, and the chances were they would be different. They would be different interpretations, and it's all good. I just was glad that Leonard Nimoy was my director, because I really did, kind of almost beg him at the beginning of shooting. I said, Mr. Nimoy, you seem to think I know what I'm doing, and I don't. I really don't. He said to me, Robin, I will take you every step of the way. I will never put you out on a limb and dangle you there alone. And I'm like, cool, great.
Wow.
And so his direction of me was very personal and very intimate in a way. Unlike most directors you work with, he was very caring, and I came at it with no ego whatsoever. So I didn't mind that he was so kind of, he would say, okay, let's hear it. This is before we're with anybody around, no lighting people, no camera guys or sound people. He would take me aside alone, and he'd say, let me hear the lines. And I'd be like, okay,
wow.
I would say them. And then he might even give me a line reading, which is the ultimate insult to most creative people, actors, whatever. But I was like, oh, man up. Like I was just grateful for the riches that were coming out of his person for me to use. So anyway, I'm sorry, I've gone on about that.
No, that's fine.
No,
do you think
we love it? We love it.
Everything that we've heard is he was like an amazing director. Do you think part of it had to do with him being very protective of the Spock character, and then feeling that protectiveness to like other Vulcan characters?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was that, what do they call it? Not sympathy, but the one that begins with a C. It's not compassion. It's not compatibility. Oh, geez, I'm senior.
Let's find the dictionary.
He was very sensitive to the whole Vulcan thing, both with myself and the other Spocks. And I also felt he was the first actor to step from behind, or from in front of the camera to go behind the camera. And I felt I look back at it at the time, and I remember observing the various sort of bundles of energy, if you will. There was Christopher Lloyd, and and he was his own unique bundle of energy. There were sort of us guest stars, right? Myself, Christopher Lloyd, and the young Spocks, etc. And then there was the supporting cast, Nichelle and Jimmy and Walter and George and so forth. And they were a lovely team, and very cohesive and very interactive with each other and kind to one another and so on. And then there was Bill, who was completely absent, like he was off somewhere in his trailer. And I've since come to learn that he was doing something, there was another job that was pressing down on him right after this. And he had a lot on his plate. So when we rehearsed scenes, he very often wasn't even there. And then he would come out and appear just as the blocking had already been done and the lighting had already been set. Wow. And then there was Mr. Nimoy, and he was juggling all these bundles of energy, some more demanding than others, some more prickly than others. And I marveled at his acumen and his deftness with these various, bundles of energy. I keep calling him that I'm saying that. But, like Christopher Lloyd, he had to be, it's almost like he had to be contained because he was so big and so and didn't hold back. What do I find? Like he was just really good at just spewing it out there. And me, I was very reserved, and I needed to understand what everything was. What's the tricorder do? Why am I wearing this big flak jacket? Blah, blah, blah. So I'm this inquisitive newbie. And then there were the well-seasoned actors who bring it with their eyes closed, Nichelle and all of them. And like I said, and Bill would come out, and he was very much the star. And I don't mean to be making fun of him, but in my 28-year-old eyes, this was what I was watching unfold, and I just couldn't imagine anybody better than Leonard Nimoy directing these various parts of the orchestra. I thought he was so diplomatic and magnanimous is a good word. In his
and this was Leonard Nimoy's first film he directed, correct?
Was it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think it was his first.
Yeah,
I'm not
believe
100% certain of that. Did he do a film with Diane Keaton before this?
I'm going to look it up while we're talking.
Oh.
Please do.
The mother or something.
Because the question is that I read something, I guess on the Wikipedia, that he chose you to play this role. Is that right? He picked you out, that he wanted you to do this role? And how did that come about? How did that come?
Well, in a nutshell, I went to meet the casting people at Paramount. I had met Elsa Bergeron months and months earlier in a general interview. She was still at Paramount working with Stuart Jensen. And there I sat between the two of them, not knowing what character I was there to possibly be considered for. There were no sides, meaning no lines to read. There was nothing to prepare. I was just simply told to go in with regard to a Star Trek film. And I remember saying kind of off the cuff, gosh, guys, if I was going to be in a science fiction movie, I'd want to play an alien. That would be what I would prefer. Because I remember years and years ago, or right around the same time, I had a callback for a Dino De Laurentiis movie about King Kong.
Oh, really?
It had to do with the two apes, the female in one large gymnasium and Kong in the other, and one of them needed a heart transplant or something, and it was open heart surgery was a part of the plot, and I remember thinking, I just can't take that seriously. I just can't. I mean, I know I'm supposed to be an actress, but I can't do it. When I had a callback, I very graciously said no, thank you. So that's what was in my mind. How much I could what sort of reality I could suspend to be in a science fiction story, and lo and behold, it was Saavik, and I go back to meet Leonard Nimoy. I think either the very next day or the day after, one-on-one, which is a very, very rare occurrence in Hollywood. Just he and I alone in a room. And he was such a gentleman and so lovely and so polite that he even asked me about the saddest little credit on my thin resume at the time. So tell me about playing Nancy and Oliver in upstate New York,
Wow.
And so we had this cute little back and forth. And, I told him I think I played every wench, every whore, wench, scallywag that was written for musical theater, pretty much in my musical theater career, but I wasn't there to play the lead in a musical theater movie, and so he very quickly said, listen, I would like you to read some of the words, but you need to go outside and look at them, and I'm going to have you back, and I'm going to record it. And I said, okay. And I remember going out in the waiting room and stressing over the words and the lines, and just sort of taking it for granted that it made sense, because you don't read the whole story, you don't know quite how the fit, right? And the one bit of direction that I remember him giving me is that Vulcans had 1,000 years of wisdom behind the eyes. Okay, well, let's see if I can carry that off. So it was the unthreatening, or unintimidating, if you will, way that he conducted that first meeting that I think made all the difference in the world,
Nice.
In my being comfortable and sort of letting my hair down with him a little bit. And it was from that one meeting, he shook my hand. He said, I have no doubt you could play this part. Now it's up to the powers that be. And I thought, I wonder who those people are. So I did end up going back to say hello to Harv Bennett at one point, and a gentleman, I think by the name of Gary Nardino, who might have been president of film at the time. And I remember now, Harv Bennett becoming more and more significant, that he wasn't just this person off in the corner. He'd written the story and he was working with Leonard. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. In fact, when they both died within a year of each other, a couple of years ago, I was just like, I don't know. Although I hadn't been in touch with them in decades, it still was like, wow, there just went a huge chapter of my life.
Yeah.
But the audition process was so gentle and so smooth. The next time I went to the studio, I was in a screen test, and I was kind of told, wink, wink, chosen you, but we have to go through this exercise.
Okay.
And these two people here are friends of friends, and yeah, we're gonna do this, but just don't fuck it up.
Well, can I go backwards?
Hell yeah.
Because as a kid watching these films on VHS, okay. I remember watching The Wrath of Khan in Kirstie Alley, and then seeing you in Star Trek 3. And as a kid, I went, why does she look different? I remember being totally and utterly confused as to, because number one, I was a kid that grew up watching classic Hollywood films on VHS that my grandmother videotaped off of cable TV for us. So I'm watching black and white films with no knowledge that those aren't current Hollywood actors in movies and stuff like that. So I went through this process as a kid where finally one day my dad said to me, son, John Wayne's been dead for a couple decades. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? And so I started like the Star Trek films is when I started really realizing what was happening. And then I started watching credits and, it's a different actress. And then I saw Kirstie Alley on Cheers. And I went, Cheers can have her. Robin's better.
I like Cheers. I like Cheers. I remember watching Cheers.
I want to get into Cheers. I need to start watching that.
But that's that's the same thing. Is when you're a kid, you don't necessarily put two and two together. So I think the first times that I saw like the second and third movie, not necessarily in order, but I was aware of them. I think for a long time I thought that they were two different characters.
Interesting.
I was like a little old, I needed to be a little older before I realized it was the same character, different actresses. And it is, okay.
So can I ask another question, Robin? You talked a little bit about the audition process and Mr. Nimoy bringing you along, which is a beautiful story. I'm so glad to hear that he was sensitive to you and caring for you and kind of helped you in that role. That way, but was there discussion about not trying to mimic how Kirstie Alley portrayed the character, or was there discussion like let's try to make it close, but you know what I mean?
It's a good question, and I don't remember a big discussion about it. What I remember is they treated it like the character never existed before that moment.
Okay.
The only person who seemed somewhat focused on making this connection between what had happened in the previous film and the character and now, my entrance was Merritt Buttrick.
Okay.
He felt the need to sort of explain what they had established. The chemistry between them, the energy between them. And I was so respectful of his position on that or whatever it was. Apparently he, according to him, they had a flirtation. It was a playful relationship, and of course I'm coming in and I'm having to, confront him about this incredible betrayal and just poor decision making. But Harv, I don't know how this sort of uniform approach was arrived at. But both Harv Bennett, Leonard Nimoy, and anyone else treated me like the character was born in that moment.
Cool.
And it was so sweet, actually, of them to do that. I wasn't made to feel like I had to mimic anything or relive anything at all.
Wonderful.
Well, characters come and characters go in Star Trek. Was there any discussion of just you being a completely different character, a rename, Lieutenant Sheboygan or something like that?
No.
Why not
Sheboygan? Not a Vulcan
name. Oh, it is. There are many Vulcans in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Where do you think it got its name from?
It's true.
They did. They actually first landed there well before First Contact. You
I
don't
thought it was
know.
Pennsylvania.
Before Pennsylvania.
But anyway, was there ever like, okay, the fans are going to be watching this movie and they're going to see a different person playing this character? We can easily explain, oh, Saavik got reassigned to another starship and this new Vulcan was on this. There was never anything like that, just to make it easy for
I feel like that would have
people
been weirder
to not question.
Yeah,
I'm certain it was discussed behind the scenes, perhaps, especially between Harv Bennett and Leonard Nimoy, but it was never something I was invited to, a conversation I was aware of at all. I mean, sincerely, it was like the character had never been played before.
Because it's interesting, the way that Kirstie Alley portrayed it, to me, always seemed much more wooden than the way you portrayed it. You had a bit more humanity to it, especially going into Star Trek IV. You seem to be more, you had more of the Romulan in you, in that you were more easygoing and more outgoing, and she was more of the stiffer type of Vulcan Romulan character.
Steve, everything you've just said is sort of a perfect example of how it's in the eye of the beholder, know, and how creativity or art is so subjective. Because I think it's just the opposite. I think I'm robotic and wooden and stiff, and I feel like her portrayal was almost like a real person, like not a Vulcan.
Interesting.
I would never have said either a robotic or stiff, but I definitely think that your version was more what we expect of as a Vulcan.
Yeah, a bit more logical.
Yeah. Yes, and more like
reserved,
focused on the task at hand, and I'm a scientist and I'm doing my job, and I wouldn't.
So we're all in blatant disagreement with Steve's comments. So I just want to
put that out. This is nothing new. I am the one doctor out of 5 that says don't brush your teeth. Okay, let them rot. It's fine. Okay.
Were you so Star Trek was obviously in the pop culture, in the 80s and everything. Were you how aware of the franchise and the fandom were you at that point when you were getting involved?
I was very aware.
Oh, wow.
My older brother loved Star Trek. And so that was what was on the television whenever it was airing, type of thing. And I don't know how much of this I can share and be delicate about it, but I have to say, no, it's really remarkable that a little show like Star Trek in the 1960s, I was all of 10, 11, 12 years old when Plato's Stepchildren aired.
Ooh, that one's a creepy episode.
Right? This is the one.
Yeah, it freaks me out. Yeah.
It didn't creep me out. I remember being enthralled by it, like just mesmerized by it. That this creature is making these human creatures do things against their will. And I'm telling you, it laid a pathway in my neurons that is there to this day.
Wow.
That's really cool. I love that. That's awesome.
When I close my eyes, some weird stuff's going on up there.
So Robin, did you watch Star Trek, the original series, when it was live on television, when it first aired?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm not alone in this planet.
I wish I could have been. I was there, but
me too. If I had been born a little earlier,
because I was there on September the 8th, 1966, when the Salt Monster arrived, and watched every single episode as they came on, and it was great. It was amazing television. It was exactly what we wanted.
Yes. And I fixated on the erotic aspect to the show. I really did. I could remember that episode. And guys, I literally went back, I think it was last summer. Sometime within the last year, I went back and watched it again to see if I remembered it, if it was what I remembered. And it was every bit what I remembered. With cherries on top, because what was interesting was I sort of remembered this, like the people, Kirk and Nimoy, or not Nimoy, Spock liked what was happening. Like there was that element of I'm being made to do this and I don't want to do this, but I kind of do.
I'm gonna watch this completely differently now.
I need to, yeah, because like
God,
that, like
so
Spock
hot.
as a horse is
It's
like
so hot.
wild.
And then there was, I remembered from all those years ago, Spock in the cave with Marion Hartley.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She's in leather, and it's do I stay? Do I go? Do I stay? Do I go? And all of that sexual tension. That's what I remember about the show. Everything, it was some broad,
Right.
exposing herself or sidling up to Kirk with her bosoms and her short, booted legs, their short skirts, and I just was like drooling on the shag carpet.
My best friend's mom used to refer to him as Kinky Kirk when she watched it new.
I'm stealing it, Steve. Kinky. It's
well,
true.
what they got away with costume-wise with the ladies is remarkable. I remember my dad frequently changing this channel in watching the original, and I'd always go as a kid, what in the heck, and then watching him again as I got into my teenagers, I went, oh, okay,
That's why he changed the channel.
Yeah.
Steven, we just watched that. I don't know. We just watched them, but I think, in my house, my dad was an engineer and I was a budding engineer. And so I'm focused seriously on the science fiction aspect of it. They're out doing space exploration. They're meeting aliens. They've got technology and all this stuff. So a lot of that stuff went right over my head, and probably still, now that you're saying it, I'm going to it's going to be different when I rewatch it.
I'm so sorry. And my brother was just like you. He was completely mesmerized by the science. And all of it on every level, and there I was just whittling it down to men and women and what they do and how they torture each other.
It was always interesting when the other male characters, Scotty or Spock or McCoy, when they had the relationship, it was very far and few between, but they did let that happen. Yeah. And, but it was still always William Shatner.
Well, that's what I loved. It was always meant to be Shatner, and like Kirk was meant to be the one, but it, like, from reading about stuff, it's like, no, actually Spock was the more popular of the two. Of like, Spock is the real attractive one.
You gotta love William Shatner's punches, though. Lot like now it's twice in this podcast I mentioned the name John Wayne, but John Wayne would punch and start way back here, and Shatner had the same thing. If you watch every bar fight, it's which is stupid as heck. Just here, I'm gonna punch you. Look out, here it comes. But it works. It's like, oh man, it's that's what I loved about the show was the bar fights, frankly, as a kid. And it wasn't until later that I started, hey, they're talking about some deep stuff here.
Yeah.
Well, so then it turned into, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was going to go back to Fisher's Spock because I've got some search for Spock questions. But I'm just so curious about playing Saavik. And you always hear when you get into character, when people, especially for playing a Vulcan, you get into character and you become a Vulcan. Did you find it challenging during the shoot to turn that off when leaving the set for the day?
Hardly. No. There, I'm pretty incorrigible. And no, what I found hard was turning it on, not turning it off. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I think one of the other things Leonard Nimoy said to do is to just work in the mirror and try not to move your face. Because we all have quirks and tics in the way we talk.
Sure.
That we aren't even realizing we're doing, and then suddenly you have to take on this militaristic bearing and contain yourself. I can barely sit still. So how did I ever contain myself?
Well, that's the thing, that you are so not. I mean, it's great because I love it. It's so much because it really shows how awesome acting is and how wonderful you did, because you are not that person, and it's great. I love it. I love it so much.
Thanks. You can't. Yeah, the people listening can't see
right
what's happening, but I talk with my hands and my face.
I do too.
All over the place. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep. Well, I think some of that is a New York thing because I talk with my hands too, to the point where I've had several employees over the years ask me if I sat on my hands, would I stop talking?
Really?
Yeah. No, because
I would never ask you that.
Yeah. It was all in good fun. It's okay, but it's true, and you do these things, and yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was weird because I like first met you at last year's Vegas convention, and I was like, "Oh, that's Saavik. I can't just go up to her and talk to her." And then I came up, and you helped me pick out a picture. Like, I was like, I couldn't decide between some of the pictures to get autographed, and I was like, "Man, you're just so cool." Like, Saavik is just being super chill. You made a funny voice. I was like, "This is incredible."
Because she's not Saavik. She's Robin, and Robin
I know
is
that's
awesome.
what's weird. It's like, but you expect, even though I know I like you're not actually Saavik, but I thought still really intimidating. And then, but like the fact that you're just completely different, like Adina's saying, is just amazing.
Oh,
I love it so much.
Thank you.
Yep.
I still, guys, honestly, I don't know what I ever did to be this lucky. But I'm never ever was confused about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it warms my heart when I see other actors come into the family.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, will they bring the respect and appreciation that they need to this whole world that's existed for a long time, and people are blessed enough to be a part of it. And for the most part, I see a lot of beautiful recognition and appreciation from the younger actors. I was on a panel once with Ethan Peck.
Oh,
and
that's really cool.
This is about 4 years ago, and it was before the pandemic.
Right.
And Ticonderoga, where James Cawley,
upstate New York,
galvanized the whole town in this little museum and stuff. And up I go, and Terry Farrell's there that weekend, and Ethan Peck, and my friend Lolita Faccio, and we're all hanging out. And I'm put on a panel with Ethan, and I had never met him, and I didn't know what character he played or anything. Total strangers to each other. So I'm thinking, oh geez, I hope this young man is polite and sensitive to the fact that probably 9 out of 9 questions are going to be for him, and I might get one every now and then. And so now we're already sort of into the panel. And it was a more intimate setting, guys. So it wasn't like it was 1,000 people in the room, maybe 150 people in the room. And someone said something about, Ethan, I don't know that I would recognize you if I didn't know you played the character. And I just went, oh, for heaven's sakes. And I went to my phone and I Googled it.
Oh.
I looked and I said, oh my God, are you
the new Spock?
The new Spock.
And he said, yes. And I just right there on the spot started to cry.
Oh.
Did he know that you had worked with the original Spock?
No. I mean, I don't know what he knew about me. I knew nothing about him. And the thing of it for me, guys, is that To Kill a Mockingbird is my all-time favorite movie.
Mm-hmm.
When I watched it, it's like I am Scout. I felt like I was Scout. I'm that little girl, and Jem is like my brother Kevin, and I love everything about that film. And then later I studied with Kim Stanley, and she is the uncredited voice of Scout, telling the story in the past, or in the present, but from the past. And so that was a little layer to all of this, to me and my connection to the film. And then to meet him was just an absolute, it undid me for a few minutes. Like I just couldn't even collect myself. And my point is, he could not have been more gracious.
Yeah.
And was a perfect example of what many of these young actors, embody, which is gratitude. Mm-hmm. Gratitude that you ever got so lucky as to be a part of this beautiful world. And this beautiful world of Star Trek and science fiction and stuff, and he just was absolutely exceptional and lovely in his decorum.
I'm connecting the dots here. and I'm a little bit shy about it, but are you saying that Ethan Peck is related to Gregory Peck?
I think he's his son.
I didn't
right?
know that.
He's his grandson.
Oh, grandson.
Oh
That's
my
right. So that makes more
goodness.
sense. Never mind.
Whoa,
Yeah.
You said To Kill a Mockingbird,
Hold
right?
on.
And that's one of Gregory Peck's great characters he ever played, right?
One of the many.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Wow, cool.
I
like Strange
didn't
New
know
Worlds
that.
even more now.
So I like to think
in my opinion, that's like having Hollywood royalty join Star Trek. To have
sitting
that
that's
and
one
his
degree of
pedigree.
you're sitting with 1 degree of Gregory Peck. I mean,
That's right.
at this, I mean, and this is an actor and a role that you admired so greatly amongst all his many other roles.
Yeah.
But to realize that you're sitting next to the grandson of one of the actors that you admired, that's really.
And the character of Atticus Finch is just beyond the beyond. You know, the whole everything about the film that Harper Lee wrote it. That she only wrote that book that was published. The Watchmen was later published. You know, her relationship. Get this other weird connection for me. She and Truman Capote were childhood friends.
Oh, wow.
Well, excuse me.
I'd read that somewhere, I think.
They were lifetime friends. I don't know that they knew each other in childhood, but it was an epic friendship. Let's put it that way. And his book, In Cold Blood, had completely DNA altering effect upon me. I practiced murder drills because of it. Literally, like I was a Brownie Scout, and I don't remember now how old I was when it came out, 10, 11. I used to practice escaping the house if the murderers came, like they did to that family in Kansas. You know, the Clutter family. I had awning windows up high. I had to stand on my bed to get to the window to get the screen down, and then I would climb up on the ledge and jump out to the ground below. And then I'd go to the garage and I'd get a ladder and I'd put it up against the house, and I'd practice climbing up so that I could warn my brothers in their bedroom and my parents in their bedroom. And then just in case the bad guys came while I was in the basement, I would crawl into the dryer drum.
Oh no!
All of me, but one way.
So you'd physically do it, not just because, I mean, I feel like I did this as mental exercises. Like I'd be lying there in bed and mentally going through the steps. Are you saying
because of this book
physically? Or? No. For me, I just did it because I'm just a paranoid freak.
Oh, no, I was obsessed with murder after In Cold Blood and the nurses in Chicago. Richard Speck.
Yeah,
the one surviving nurse. I was obsessed with her and just obsessed with surviving. Something like that befall my life. Anyway, so that it's weird the incestuous of all those things.
Right.
Because one dot connects to the other dot. You know what I mean? For me, weird.
So. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm dominating. Sorry.
No,
ahead,
it's okay. I was going to just say about the, Ethan Peck and the new actors coming into the franchise. I have this like image that when they are casting, they're mindful of they need to bring in a certain person that like they need to bring in people who are not just going to be good on screen, but good, gracious people behind screen too, because I feel like they're aware that anyone that comes in is going to be part of, they're not just acting in another movie, another TV show, they're part of something larger. And I like to think that that's actually part of getting cast in Star Trek these days. Yeah. I don't know for a fact, but
I couldn't say. I don't even know. Does Junie Lowry still do it? Who's doing it now?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
That's a good question. Yeah. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Let me ask you this question: since you were sitting with him in a panel, have you been watching Strange New Worlds?
I have not. I confess, I have not.
Okay.
I did watch a couple of episodes either or two ago.
Okay, he is the third actor to portray Spock.
Oh.
But he's brought his own level of style to it that is exceptionally good. And I would, since you sat with him, I would recommend maybe to watch some of the episodes with him because he is an exceptional young actor and he's brought a level of humanity to Spock that was always there in other actors, but you'd be impressed to know how good his grandson is as an actor. I think you will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Especially this season, he's had
Oh yeah,
tremendous.
he's
had so
amazing.
much fun. Really is.
My
Yeah.
Facebook feed has people talking about this season. And I know I need to watch it. Yeah.
It is. And not just that, but all the other actors.
It's all good.
It is. You look at the original series, which now is going to be called Those Old Scientists,
Right? Those old scientists.
and if you watch the last, you'll get the joke. But anyway, every one of the actors they chose fit the role very well.
Mm-hmm.
They've done in all the series. They've done a remarkable job of picking the right actors to play the right roles, and they do it so well. And so, even to yourself, playing Saavik was exceptionally enjoyable, and you brought your own level of of style to it. That was maybe it was different than Kirsty, but it was your own, and thank goodness. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in here now.
Jump, please.
And we need to let Cris ask another question too.
Yes,
because I know he's probably ready to do that. But
he's such a good Canadian. He's so nice.
I'm just listening. The conversation is so good. I don't want to just ram in with other
you
random
never say
subjects.
I'm a good Ohioan, Steve. I don't know. I'm.
But that goes without saying. It goes without saying.
But okay, two things. Okay, in Star Trek 3. One of the most stunning moments of the film, and there are several, many even, but I love when David is killed and you have to tell Kirk.
Yeah.
David is dead.
What a line.
Such a, like, that to me is an amazing moment. And I don't, there might be a story, but I'm not trying to dig out a story or anything unless you have a great one, of course. But, also, Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. To this day, I watch that wonderful, amazing film. Adina and Cris and I and Steve argue about whether that's the best film or Star Trek First Contact is or whatever. Or Wrath of Khan. But to this day, I watch that film and I go, why isn't Saavik in this film throughout it?
That would have been so great.
They got an extra seat aboard the USS Bounty. They could have
HMS Bounty.
Thank you, HMS Bounty.
HMS Bounty.
They could have fit you in there someplace. You would have been wonderful. You would have been looking after Spock because he was still going through his regeneration of his character. I think it would have worked very well.
It's really though hard to imagine any changes at this point, though. But yeah.
Guys, they negotiated Star Trek 3, 4, 5, and 6 when I worked on 3, which was unusual. They hadn't done that with Kirsty, and apparently they regretted it because that was how she was able to graciously negotiate herself out. Was to really ask for too much money. If you chose not to do a project, the best way to bow out and save face for everyone was to simply just ask for extraordinary amount of money. They had me under contract for the 4th film. It didn't matter if I said 2 words or was a major character. And I remember, guys, my father suffered from cancer just as I was cast in the movie. And lived long enough. He died in November of 1984, but the film premiered in June. So he lived long enough to see it. And of course, he was privy to my contract. And it was awfully, awfully nice, that aspect of it, to send him to the next life, thinking I was going to be okay. Like his daughter's back to Hollywood, and they were always very supportive and did everything they could to root me on and to support me economically if I needed it. But that was a sort of a sweet little blessing in that regard. But when push came to shove and principal photography was now being implemented within the time frame of the contract, my manager reached out to Paramount and said, well, are you going to use her or not? Because now we have this deadline. They said, oh, well, she's not really in the movie. The deadline passed. And then they reached back to my manager to say,
oh, interesting.
Look, she's got a couple of scenes, they're essentially kicking the character to the curb. And we're willing to pay back. So the first film was $30,000 for 8 weeks, which back then was crazy amounts of money. It seemed fabulous then. And 2 years later, within a year and a half to 2 years later, it was going to be 75,000. Then it was going to be 150,000. And then it was going to be 300,000, something like that.
Wow.
And it was like, oh my God, the lottery times 10, back again, I was young and it was the 80s. So they offered $10,000 4 days work, thereby saving the 65. Right.
Gotcha.
And was I going to say no? No, I don't want to put a period to the character. Once I received the script and I realized how because the fans too, guys, it's not just a producer representation, talent circle. The circle includes the fans, and the fans have been telling me for a year and a half they're grooming you. Oh, they're grooming you for more. That we can see it. I'm like, okay, if that's what you're telling me. You guys know you guys know the franchise better than I do. So it was painful to learn how little I would be in the film. But I have to say, Adina, to your point, and who was the other person who favored it? Star Trek 4?
Oh, it's my all-time favorite.
Yes, it's Chris's
the lonely Ohioan over here that never gets complimented by Steve.
Well, I'm with you guys. I read the script and I said, oh my God, they're back to the winning alchemy that is Star Trek. There's humor, there's a simple message about the preservation of life. The whole cast is involved. Everybody gets a moment. It just was a great little adventure movie. And I said to myself, there's only so much room on the bus. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't get everybody on the bus all the time. And I was okay. Like I it wasn't life or death. I adjusted my thinking and I shifted to just gratitude for being involved at all. Was I sad that they kind of put the character down and then didn't pick her up again? Yeah. That's too bad. I thought they were missing a lovely character arc. Her and Spock and possible pregnancy and all of that. And
this hey, we have to talk,
Well,
we should acknowledge what happened.
So I would have loved to see the character go on. I'm not keen totally on the pregnancy part of that. Okay. I wouldn't have like that. I don't know why. I'm glad that didn't happen. I would have loved to see the character just be there, but something about
what
a pregnancy.
What are you talking about? Pregnancy.
Oh,
so that was the
am I out of the loop on something?
Yeah, I guess so.
There's I think in like extended canon, I think there's a pregnancy.
In the book, I think they imply
something.
Oh, you're talking in the books.
So I'm talking about the Ponfar.
Oh, it was in the script.
It just wasn't from the books. It was in the script. Even Harv Bennett. I have a Western Union telegram from him. Bring your obstetrician.
That's awesome.
To the fourth film.
That's the coolest thing.
I'll be darned.
And then they took the lines out. Any wink suggestion that she was with child was the film removed. Was stripped of that. Yeah. And it became a wish for a good journey. Do you know?
Okay.
Right.
And I believe I handed him some sort of a digital file for testimony as to what happened with David or something like that. That was all. But that was all it was.
Gotcha.
So you just have to be grateful for what was and not be too brokenhearted over what wasn't. Because guys, this is a fickle business.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So if you attach your self-worth or confidence to the decisions of other people, things that are out of your control, you won't survive.
That's going to be true in every business
in life,
really,
life overall.
Yep.
But I have to say though, that exchange with Kirk that you have, I think is perfect. Where you tell him about how David died, I think that scene is just so great. And even though we didn't get much of you, I'm just glad that what we did get was just really, really well done.
Thank you.
But then a few years later, we got more in Next Generation in the episode The Gambit, which was a great episode.
Which I love. I watch that all the time. It's one of my, if I'm in a TNG mood and I'm like, okay, what am I feeling? It's probably going to be Gambit. I love Gambit.
Well, I loved how I rewatched it the other day with my older son who just turned 13, and it held his interest the whole way through. which
Good.
he loves the new Trek. Like we watch the Lower Decks, he loves the new Trek, but Next Generation episodes, sometimes he'll watch the whole one with me, sometimes not. This two-parter, he watched the whole two-part with me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's nice to hear. I watched it myself for the first time in 30 years. Maybe last summer.
Mhm.
I don't know what was going on last summer. I'll tell you what was going on. No, the pandemic. What it did for our world was it made people reach across the abyss to one another. So I was doing podcasts and interviews and stuff, and it was so sweet, to just be pulled out of the ether. Since most of us weren't doing what we usually do, and come out and play with people, electronically, Zooming and all that stuff. So where was I going with all that?
So you rewatched it, yeah.
I rewatched it, and I thought, what, you're not bad. I was sort of like, wow, okay, because I was so much more comfortable with the whole style of Star Trek the second time around. And I also kind of enjoyed, guys, when I did that episode, those two episodes, they didn't give me the second one while I was filming the first one. And I remember going to one of the producers or somebody, and I said, hey, I'm clearly maybe not who I say I am. So could you give me the second part of the script so I could maybe understand? Well, we can't do that because we don't have it written yet. And I'm like, oh
my goodness. Wow.
So it was kind of fun to just be asked to just wing it. And hope that it made sense.
And you got to work alongside Patrick Stewart.
Oh, what a doll. What a total doll. The man is like an acting calculator. You just put the numbers in and he comes up with the perfect, sum. He just I remember they switched scenes on him last minute or something. And it was his episode. They were his episodes. And he immediately shifted, his memorization or whatever to the scene at hand, the one that he wasn't expecting to work on, and deftly, delivered it. Wow. I particularly loved, we were working on the last scene of the two-part episode. And I remember it just so happened, very often you shoot scenes out of order, but this one happened to be at the end of a long week. We had been in a small quarters and the smoke and everything that, this fake smoke. And he was frustrated, and the director would say action and he would deliver his lines, but it wasn't settling right with him. So the director said, okay, Patrick, let's take a break. You go off and think for a moment. And what was happening was the lines at the end, remember the resonator, Cris, you might remember this, or you just saw it.
Yeah.
Resonator, when it was met with aggression, was activated. And he was saying his lines aggressively and wasn't realizing something about it didn't feel right to him, because he came to realize that if he did it that way, it wouldn't be true to the story. So when Frakes' character and Worf and whatever, another red suit, come into the scene, he spoke with them very calmly and very decisively, but not in such a way that it would activate the what was it called?
It was a resonator.
The psionic,
the psionic resonator.
Resonator, yeah.
And that was what was troubling him. And I have to say, my esteem, and why he couldn't, finish the scene, my esteem for him grew in that moment, because, when people are making a lot of money and there's, and they're in their seventh or whatever, fourth or fifth or sixth, even the main characters, they just don't care as much. When you're a guest, you observe these things on a show. And it was so wonderful to see that cast care, but especially Patrick, care so much about the storytelling. Like, yay, my admiration for him was off the charts.
That's awesome.
That is actually really cool. But I have to ask, when playing the character, what was the process like playing a Romulan, pretending to be a Vulcan, but also obviously not trying to be Saavik in that role?
Well, I think I just felt more liberty to use my body, believe it or not. I almost I felt as though the character would take on the I can't think of the word I want, the carriage or something and manner of a bird.
Interesting.
Watching and so on, and I can't explain it. I'm a very visceral actor. I don't analyze stuff a lot. I just sort of get myself physically into it, and for me that mattered. My physical self and how I would interact with Patrick. Was I looking him straight in the eye to eye, or was I looking at him out of the corner of my eyes? Do you know what I mean? Because I felt she was insincere. She was hiding something.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting to kind of, I don't know. It was kind of like a sparring match, but it had to do with bodily physical energy. I haven't even ever analyzed it myself. But again, as having been a part of the universe for a little while, I just felt a little more confident to play with it. Whereas with Saavik, I was absolutely a deer caught in the headlights until like a Gumby, until Nimoy came over and moved my arms and put me in position. I just wanted to come through for him.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do good for him, and I was hoping it would come off as real or whatever it was he was trying to achieve. And I was a little less cautious with the next generation, just letting my hair down a little bit.
Cool.
In my shoes, I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, that makes sense though. And the way you described Talera, it's like, yeah, she's able to call out Picard pretty quickly and be like, hey, I know you're up to something. And she questions him a lot, and he just doesn't relent. And she's like, no, you're there's an angle that I don't know, but I know it's there.
Afraid your character would find him out for real. I mean, I remember going, oh no, she's so close.
It's a tense episode.
Yeah. It is. It's a really good one. But also, so one of the things I read when we were preparing for this was that you were almost cast as Kalar, which is another interesting.
Yes, and I almost feel badly talking about that, but then it would be silly, because I'm now I consider myself a good friend of Susie's. I adore her. I freaking adore that woman. She is so GD talented. It's ridiculous. Like even the other day I was trying to show a little musical video she had done. It's a song she wrote, and she shot a little music video while she sang it. And it's fabulous. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to. It's this fabulous little kick-ass song that she does. And while I'm in that YouTube video, I see another one where she plays the mother of somebody on a show. Is it How I Love My Mother? Whatever the heck.
Oh, How I Met Your Mother? She's
maybe.
Oh.
That was, and she's got the gift of comedic acting. Like in spades. And if you're connected to her on Facebook, her Facebook posts are so juicy and entertaining. She'll talk about how she met Dustin Hoffman or how she met so and so, and not an ounce of braggadocio in it at all. It's about little Susie Plaxton happened to bump rub elbows with this human being and how wonderful it was for a moment. Anyway, why am I going on about that? Because she was ultimately cast as the character, and yay for her. And yes, you're correct. It was offered to me, and it was the first time, and maybe even the only time in my whole 18-year career where I already had committed to another job, like the day before.
Oh, wow.
And because it was the next generation, and because the fans had been asking me for so long, when are you going to be on? When are you going to be on? As if it was just a mere phone call from me to Michael Pillar to say I want to be on, or whatever. What's the other guy's name? Rick
Berman.
Rick Berman.
I won that contest, fellas.
Thank you.
I said that first. Thank you.
But you only get half points. Sorry.
Oh, shut up with the heck.
The fans assume that it's a tight, small world, and that we all know each other, and we have each other's phone numbers. Hey, Rick, I really want to do this show next week. Give me a call. So and it's not like that at all. I had to always go over and audition just like every other actress in Hollywood, and there was never any, hey, this person played Saavik before. Nothing. there was never any recognition that I had ever been a part of Star Trek prior to that moment. So it having to lose the part, not the role, the job, whatever, was painful.
Mm-hmm.
But then, another few months later, along came Talera. So
if the opportunity so arose to play Saavik somehow. Yes.
Please, can we make this happen?
Thinking,
are you silly?
A little. So, I like now that I'm thinking about it, like they could have worked Saavik into the next gen somehow because they work Spock into it for crying out loud. And then you think
Star Trek Legacy.
But I mean, what if they do a DS9 reboot?
Could you call Terry?
I mean, let's start a petition right now. A Robin Curtis petition. Bring Saavik back.
Can we get Terry on
Started
the phone?
right here on the Big Sci-Fi.
It would be a gas. It would be
considering how long a Vulcan lives. Sure.
Yeah, no. If Star Trek Legacy
work.
Goes forward, it is technically possible, and it would make sense. I mean, it would make sense. It wouldn't be weird. Mm-hmm. It would make sense.
Thank you.
I'm for this idea.
We'll have to call.
I'm ready to start writing for Star Trek Legacy. That's like my that's my new mission.
Terry Metalis up right now, Chris.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know what?
You've got his number.
When after everything gets resolved in the universe.
Leave him a voicemail.
Yeah. So let's ask about some other, so we spent a lot of time talking about Star Trek because Star Trek is awesome. But on the Big Sci-Fi, we talk about other science fiction too. And so you've also had roles in things like Babylon 5.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you yeah. Did you not see my show notes?
No, I
She did her homework. Adina
always does.
Oh, Adina
I try.
So detailed. Yeah. We come up with like a reference or two, and she's got like 1, 2, 3, 4,
it's
5, 6.
Just I spend 7, my time
8.
with Google. Google and me are best friends. That's really all that is.
I want to publicly apologize to Adina for not reading all of the show notes.
Oh, it's not the first time. Won't be the last. It's fine. But here's the thing: is I don't think I watched Babylon 5 in its full original run. I don't think I knew you were in it, and partly because of the makeup, and the prosthetics.
You wouldn't, no. So word gets around a little bit with the science fiction franchises. Who can wear the prosthetics and not freak out. Because it's if you're wearing a full head prosthetic, it can be, I think for some people it's very claustrophobic or whatever, they have anxiety. It wasn't a problem for me. So that was about as covered up as a human being can be, but my eyes and sort of, you could see my epithelial tissue in my lips or whatever. Otherwise it was all a fish head. I really don't even know what else to call it. It was sort of and anyway, no, I enjoyed the heck out of it. They were a nice group of people. Guys, back in the day, you were just so grateful for work because you paid your bills. And as ordinary as that sounds, as mundane as that is, that was thrilling to get a job, and because I wasn't like I worked every week. Do you know what I mean? I would do a national commercial in January, and then I would do a Star Trek convention in March, and I would get a guest spot on whatever Night Court in June, and then I would do whatever a Corman movie in the fall, and you put it all together and you made a living. You made your living with a little glue and paste and tape between these disparate things. So for me, Babylon 5, it wasn't so much, oh yay, another science fiction show, so much as I was just grateful to come out and play. I talked with someone recently who said they love actors because they're able to, without being in it with us, they're able to appreciate how what we do means that we're connecting and relying on each other. It's very much a team effort, acting, and that is always. This is always a beautiful and very gratifying experience to give to the actor. He gives back to you, and you support each other, and you lift each other up, and you try to tell the story as best you can. That's joy. That's pure joy for someone who does what we do. So it was a pleasure to work with that cast. And they were all good sports, and like the Star Trek actors, appreciated their good fortune. I got to be friends with Julie Caitlin Brown, and look how she's turned all of that into quite a business for herself, representing actors and so on. They're good eggs, all of them.
Nice.
If you don't mind, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, your turn.
I was going to ask, switching a little gear here. There was a point where you no longer were acting, or you put it on the side and you took a new profession, which you have now.
Yes.
In the real estate industry. Was that like at some point you went, this is not going to last forever, playing and acting and getting acting jobs. Yeah. Maybe I should have a fallback or something else to do, that caused you to get into this other profession?
Steve, so when I was in the business, Meryl Streep is the one that raised the red flag to all the female actors out there. And this was about when she did Out of Africa.
Oh, okay.
And Robert Redford was paid
way too much compared to her.
Yeah. Money than she was, and it was her film. And so she analyzed the statistics and made it so clear to the female membership. Oh, you're working over the age of 40 is not looking good. It's looking pretty bad. There are not enough women directors, not enough women writing the scripts, not enough women cinematographers, and there just aren't any women characters. So the body of actors stays the same. The body of, qualified, talented actresses is the same as you get into the late 30s and early 40s, but the roles diminish greatly, the number of roles. And so, yeah, I knew the day would come when I wouldn't work as much. I didn't know how it would come exactly, but I started to work a little less, when I was 41, 42, 43. And then I reconnected with a gentleman from my childhood. This is a guy that I grew up with. He had no connection to show business. He lived in Cincinnati at the time. And I was in LA, and he was my younger brother's best friend still. They had remained friends ever since high school.
Excuse me, did you say Cincinnati, Ohio?
Yeah.
There you go, Steve.
Yes, right. Mr. Ohio.
There you go. Good people from Ohio.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Don't you have a whole show?
What's that?
I said, don't you have a whole show, Brian? Isn't
I wasn't in it.
No, I know you weren't in it, but I mean, it's cool. It's a whole show.
WKRP Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
about.
Yes.
Well, I moved to Cincinnati. I married that.
Interesting.
I retired from the business, and I remember saying to my ex-husband in California, I said, Kent, I want to take an ad in Variety, a full-page ad. He goes, why? I said, because I want to thank the people that I've enjoyed, and I want to call them out by name. North Heath and Leslie Decter and all these amazing people I worked with. And he said, Robin, they don't care. They don't care. And and he could be so cynical, but he was right, is my point. You think there's this moment in time where you'll get a watch or you'll a little dinner you're in your honor or something, but no. You end
Lifetime Achievement Award for Robin Curtis for playing Saavik. Thank you.
She made it to 43, and then she left the biz. So I jokingly say that I played the role of the Midwestern housewife for 3.5 years. So I lived in Cincinnati. I got very active, Brian. You'll appreciate this. I immediately recognized the undertow there of conservatism.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And I was in the National Organization for Women chapter. I marched for gay rights. I volunteered at Planned Parenthood. I went full, medieval liberal in that town. I won't even talk about it now, but some strange stuff went down in Cincinnati while I lived there, which was it was like, wow, this town is so dysfunctional. But the marriage didn't work. My role as a Midwestern housewife ran out and I moved back to upstate New York.
Mm.
And the reason I sell real estate is because I fell in love with the contractor.
Mm.
Oh,
Gentlemen, I bought this old house in the village, a completely inappropriate real estate purchase for someone my age at the time. Ancient house, 200-year-old house, village taxes for the rest of my life. But I fell in love with the house, and it made me feel hope and optimism and possibilities. You know, a few weeks later, I hired this contractor after interviewing 4 of them and proceeded to fall madly in love, and I was with him for 17 years. So if that guy sold widgets, I would be a widget salesperson. Yeah.
Well, we're missing a show on HGTV, a potential for you. You know, I married my contractor. You know, and,
Oh my goodness!
How cliche is that? Oh God!
Oh, Robin renovates. There you go.
Robin renovates.
Robin renovates.
I'd also watch that.
Yeah.
yes, the dating game and the contracting shows come together. That's right.
Renovate your house and your life.
That's actually.
Are you still in the house?
I am. Oh my God, I love this house.
Okay, that's what's behind you. That's what's behind you. Okay.
Go out of this box or this house in a box. Yeah. That's just my dining room wall. Yeah, no, I wish everyone felt about the home they buy.
Yeah.
The way I felt about this house when I walked in.
Yep.
Nice.
I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my. And you know, guys, everything fit. Every stick of furniture found a spot. And normally in houses, you know, you kind of bump into things until you figure out where the light switch is or where that corner is. I never bumped a knee. It was like trying on the best dress in the world. And it fits perfectly. This house fits me perfectly. People go by and they shout at me, I love your house.
Well, it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because my mom was my realtor.
Oh.
And she showed me like 4 or 5 different homes, and we just said, no, no, no. And then she said, well, I got this one last piece of property. I'm going to show it to you. It's overgrown. It hasn't been lived in for 6 months. It's dirty. And we looked in the window, and right then we knew we're home. And we've been in that home since 1986 because you just know when you see it.
Yeah.
I love that.
It is your home, you know?
Yeah.
So you felt the same way. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
For my wife and I, the house we're in now, it was, can we see ourselves raising our kids here? Will our kids grow up in this home and do we see good memories ahead? And so that was one for us. So
I've been here for 21 years. And when I first bought it, you drive up the driveway and it looks like this little nothing. And so I was thinking to myself, there's no way, this is nothing. But then when you walk in, there's like a vaulted ceiling, and then it's a third of an acre. So you look out the back and it's like this really big thing. I was like, okay, maybe this is not nothing. And maybe if I did stay here, I could do something with it. And so since then I put 2 extensions on the house, and I have
I didn't know that.
No plans to go anywhere. I'll send you the before and after. I love showing people the before and after, but 2 extensions on it.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a lot.
And it's still it's still not the biggest house ever, but I love it. I love it.
But dealing with a 200-year-old home.
Yes.
And considering that what the form of heating, what the form of lighting, the form of whatever, hopefully when you got it, some people had already brought it up to modern specifications and you just made your changes.
Yes, I don't have to pump my water or go to the or anything. No. It's been updated. You know, but could there be a wire in the wall behind the lath and plaster that a little mouse could chew on? And yes.
I hope you have good insurance.
We were here. Was it on Thanksgiving Day? I was here with my former partner and his 2 boys, his 2 little cherubs. And the lights started flickering, and we're like, "What the hell's that?" And he's a contractor, so he goes downstairs to the
fuse box.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's melting.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it was. The house would have caught fire had we not been home and seen it. And then his electrician came on Thanksgiving Day and replaced the whole box and the wiring to the house. Yeah. And he would often say, I wished we'd left that day. I wished we'd gone, to go get some turkey and let the house burn down. And I'm like, no. Yeah.
Anyway. Wow.
A
Do you have
new
ghosts?
show.
I mean, a 200-year-old house.
Yeah.
Are there ghosts?
I do not have ghosts that I know of, Adina.
Okay.
I did live in a house in LA. The only house I lived in LA that was mentioned in the O.J. Simpson trial.
Ooh.
And of course, that appealed to me because of my obsession with murder. So Marcia Clark referred to my home as the Defensa home. That was the former owner.
Oh my God.
He had a house guest, right? A contractor working on the house that was staying there with him who murdered the maid next door.
What?
Yes,
wow.
This happened. So she mentioned it as precedent for going into a property under exigent circumstances. Meaning blood drops to the door, like his blood drops on the Bronco, which is why they went over the fence and into his house.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so Murder, She Wrote. We've got now Robin Curtis bring back Murder, She Wrote. We're gonna get you so many roles. It's gonna be amazing here, you know? Producers, are you listening to us?
Funny you should mention Murder, She Wrote, because I jokingly say they had to hire me when they did, because they had hired every actress in Hollywood twice. And they went to the Rolodex and went, oh my God, Robin Curtis is the only one we haven't hired yet. No, but it meant a lot to me to be on that show because I was a big fan of hers.
Oh yeah.
And I saw Sweeney Todd and when it premiered in New York City. God, when was it? 1982, 1981?
Wow.
And I had a former college, older than me. We didn't know each other at school, but one of my college classmates invited me to a cast party. He was in the cast of Sweeney Todd. And there I was in Hal Prince's home watching the Tonys when Angela Lansbury won and the play won, and Sweeney Todd won, and I think Len Curiou may have won. And they came back after, and there she came into the house with herself, her husband, and Rock Hudson. And
really?
My first really New York theater party.
Yes.
Meeting Hal Prince and Stephen Sondheim and Jessica and Angela Lansbury, a big hero. I adored her. Adored her. I was so sad when she died.
Yeah.
Earlier, well, it was late last year, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
It's pretty recent. Yeah.
It was nice to see her come back and in the latest Mary Poppins movie where she played at the very end of it. It was just like, it's great to see just a wonderful actress and I had a chance to work with. That's amazing. Yeah.
So speaking of upcoming roles,
yes.
So there's a movie, which is, I have to tell our listeners that to me, the craziest thing is a friend of mine from high school is directing it. He's a director of independent films. And it was really funny is before you were even announced to be at Trek Long Island, I got a text message from him. He's like, Dina, guess what? Because he knows I'm a big, Trekkie, and he'd like that I'd appreciate hearing the news. He's like, guess who's going to be in my new movie? And he sent me an article about this. And I was like, this is amazing. And so what I never heard, though, is how you guys met and how that all happened, how you and Dave met.
Yeah. So sweet. Again, you wonder if, how much the pandemic really inspired creativity and taking action on things. But I got an email in November of 2021, and I didn't know the sender, but it was a very gracious email, and he explained that he was a filmmaker on Long Island, and that he thought, having watched, I believe he said something like having watched a video that I'd done on YouTube, and I thought maybe it was one of the podcasts or things I had done during the pandemic when people reached out, and he said, and I really feel you're right for this role. And I thought, well, this is so cute. I hadn't worked in many, many years and over 20 years. And so I wrote back and I said, well, how lovely of you to reach out to me. Why don't you send me the script and let me see what I think? And he sent the script, and gosh darn it, he had written it. He was not only the director, but the screenwriter. And it made sense. It was a well-crafted script. It's not my genre. It's a horror film, but it's a psychological horror film. And the part that he was asking me to play didn't have to kill anyone or be killed. So I didn't have to play terror or fear, which is very not a fun thing to play on camera. I don't think it's not a fun thing to act again and again. Because you're always running from something, you're frightened. So I was like, this looks like this could be fun. So I said, kiddo, if you can get the support to make your little movie, I would love to be in it.
That's great.
Yes, and then he stayed in touch, and he would be back to me periodically. And then he tells me he's talking to Lou Gossett Jr. And then he tells me he's got Lance Henriksen committed. And I'm like, well, good for you. You're pulling out every talented, ancient, supporting actor there is on the planet. But they're good actors. And then he got, as I was mentioning to you, Adina, a moment ago, he said he had some kind of SAG sanctioning of some kind. Because we discussed how we would work around that. So anyway, so lo and behold, he gets the green light, and he lost a location. We were supposed to shoot at the end of April, and he lost his location, and he said it's going to look now more like June, and finally the dates were fixed. And I was petrified because I was worried about my ability to memorize the lines, believe it or not. It's like I could memorize them, but I was worried I would have be arrested by such severe stage fright in the moment that I wouldn't know my name, much less my lines. And I'm not kidding. It's gotten worse as I've gotten older. But lo and behold, I go down to Long Island, and he has put together the most talented, scrappy crew of people. I enjoyed each of them. The cameramen were good, and the makeup artist and the sound guy, his whole crew was just lovely and professional. And 2:00 in the morning, 3:00 in the morning, when a lot of people start to not care so much, they still gave a darn and still, corrected the lighting or fixed something that wasn't correct. It just blew my mind. I would work with him again in a nanosecond. I had an enormously good experience, and the other actors were lovely about the lines. I gotta say, it would be fun to get back in the ship again. It would, or get back in the driver's seat.
That's awesome.
Back in the saddle again.
It's wonderful to hear such good things about my friend. I'm going to say his name, Dave Campfield, a friend of mine from high school. Not like super, best friends, but definitely friends. And we've stayed in touch over the years. And it's wonderful to just see how well he's been doing. They've been doing several independent films. One called Fortress of Sin has won some independent film awards. And yeah, they do horror, which is also that's not a genre that I watch much of. And so I've been trying to force myself to watch this film because I haven't yet, even though it's won, awards. And another friend of mine from high school is also in it too. But it's so great to hear that, you had such a good experience with them. And that's so exciting. And also I love that you call Dave kiddo because, we're the same age.
And that's what blows my mind too, because I whenever I tell the story, I say this young man from Long Island, and then it's like, because when you get to be my age, everybody's a young man. But no, of course he's not 25 anymore.
I love because I'm going to be 49 in a few days, so I love it.
You're a girly girl. What was cute about the experience too was that like we go to this house on Long Island, right? And it's supposed to be my house. Actually, I'm in the home that he's gotten the good graces of the owners to use is actually my house, my character's house, and it belongs to this ancient couple, in their late 80s, and they're not exactly sure what's happening. And we've overtaken the house, right? And they're having to be outside, and it's a little warm, and they were very worried about the fake smoke that was kept being blown into the scenes to give it a certain look. And then I find out that their son, Howard, I've met him at Icon. I don't know, 30.
I used to go to Icon, yeah.
And it's really through Howard that Dave has been able to secure this house, this location. And the trade-off is Howard would like to do an interview with me. And so I'm thinking that's going to happen during the day. Like I'm probably going to meet him and we're going to do this straight up. But no, it was in between takes. This is how I would so I would do the scene, and then I would have to go over here and do this radio interview with this dude, and I'm like, oh my God, it was late and I was a little tired, and I'm like, oh Lordy. But this is, this was the bartering, that happened, that he would finally get this interview with me. That apparently he had asked me for one 40 years earlier, and I had apologized that I couldn't do it. And this was, being able to do it again. And then we go to the next house, and there's other things going on, ways in which the homeowner and the people working on the movie are, extending ourselves to them because clearly, favors are being exchanged, but it's not clear who's giving the favor and who's getting the favor. So you just have to be really nice and do whatever, talk to anybody who's wanting to talk to you, so that everybody walks away, upright and getting what they needed. So it was interesting how that works, the chips.
Well, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to this. And again, I want to watch some horror. I want to watch Fortress of Sin, the other movie that they've got out there. And and when this comes out, I'm definitely looking forward to it. So what I am going to say is, guys, do you guys have other questions? Because I think we're going to wrap up.
I've learned so much about you that it has been as a homeowner, as an actress, as bon vivant, and knowing that you've blown my mind by telling me that Ethan's grandfather was Gregory. That if I walk away from this with a greater, I appreciate him so much as an actor, and it's now another step forward. That the bloodline is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you so much for that.
We learned a lot today.
Absolutely. We did.
Well, Robin, thank you so much for generously making time. Thank you.
Guys, my pleasure. Thank you. I wish you all really well. Enjoy the rest of your summer. This was a treat.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. And I'm going to say thank you to our dear listeners too. We want to thank you for taking the time to listen to us. And please don't be shy. We invite you to connect with us by emailing your thoughts and ideas to the Big Sci-Fi Podcast at gmail.com. And if you're looking for some more interactivity, you can engage with us and our thriving community by joining our Facebook group or following our updates on Instagram and Twitter and subscribing to our YouTube channel. And of course, we have to shout out to the Galaxy's premier podcast network, the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. Yes, venture over to trekgeeks.com to discover us and a universe full of other captivating podcasts. Until our paths cross again, go well, treat each other kindly, and remember to live long and prosper. Stay tuned for the next amazing installment of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast.